Welcome to analysis of several business cases for personal trainers. We're going to look at four, and the purpose really of looking into these business cases is to have a look at how the numbers in a personal training business work and what underlies the numbers, what can affect them. And the main aim here really is to allow any personal trainer who runs through this video, these analyses, to actually understand how to make more money as a personal trainer using less time and effort. So get some efficiencies out of your business. So we've broken it into sections, and the first section we're going to look at here is income. So we're going to run through the income analysis for these four personal trainers: John, Jenny, James and Jill. And you'll see on the left hand side we've got leads. And now leads in personal training is anyone that you know the pain, which is why they started their exercise, their goals, time frames and barriers. So we think those 4 points are what distinguish a lead from an inquiry. For instance, an inquiry just being someone who's asked about personal training as a service. A lead really is where you've actually got some information about the client. So the first row here is leads. The second row is conversion rate, and that's actually the conversion rate of the number of people who were leads who then became clients eventually. So clients are the next row, and then we've got the frequency of spend per customer. This is really how often those clients are personal training with you across a year. So if you see for John he's got 12, you can see that they are personal training just once a month with John, whereas Jill over here has got 69. Those people are personal training about 1.5 sessions per week, or 1.5 times a week. The next row is average spend on a 1 hour session. In this case we've got John who's at $35 all the way ranging up to Jill who's at 70. Now for the purpose of this analysis, these people are in the same club, so we're just going to keep it pretty simple so that they're all in the same fitness club, and as a result the businesses are quite comparable, and we'll have a chat about how that works. So the final thing is turnover. So if you multiply the number of clients someone has by the frequency of spend that they have times the amount that they spend each time, you'll get a total of turnover. And you can see here that the two people with the highest turnovers are James and Jill, up around $100,000. John is rapidly going out of business, and Jenny is in a stage that's probably a growth stage, I would hope, but she's just sort of struggling along there really at subsistence. So let's break these numbers down and have a little bit closer look at some of them here. So John, he's charging too little. That's one of his challenges within his income analysis. He's converting poorly too. 10% conversion of leads to clients is really too low. Now I just need to let you know that there's a difference. There's 2 points at which you convert. First is you convert a lead from being someone who's wandering around the club who you're talking to or who's responded to some marketing to a consultation, which is where you sit down with them formally and complete a screening form and a training plan and so on. That's one element of conversion. The second element of conversion is converting them from that consultation, that training plan, into paying clients. So there's sort of 2 steps. Now in this case we're looking at the whole lot. So what we're saying is if you had 100 people who were leads, who you know their pain, goal and time frame and barriers, so you know those 4 things about them, and you signed 20 of them up to personal train with you long term, then that's a 20% conversion. It includes both of those steps, converting someone from off the gym floor into a formal sit-down situation where a consultation occurs, and converting them from the consultation to a paying client. Alright, so the next thing is John is suffering too low a frequency of spend, so once a month is far too low. Now the main thing with once a month is it's actually too low for John's business, but more importantly for a client it won't get them results. It's just way too low a frequency to have any real effect either on their effectiveness of their exercise routine or their motivation. So the total turnover is way too low as a result, and when we look at the causes for John, we're really looking into 3 factors here. First of all, he's got poorly targeted marketing. The way that we know that is if we go back and look at John, he's got 160 leads, but he's converting very few of them. Now, he may be attracting the wrong type of clients. So he might be marketing quite broadly, getting 160 leads. Unfortunately, though, most of them aren't suitable for what he can deliver, therefore he has trouble converting them. The other thing that could be happening for John is that he's got unsuitable lead generating activities. What that means is that we all have a natural wiring for certain types of lead generating activities. For instance, I might be good face to face with people, walking up to them in the club, helping them out with their technique, modifying their cardiovascular training to give them some more results. Or I might be really good on the phone, or I might be really good at using print media and using drop boxes and so on in the club, and doing warm calls to interested parties. But I might not be good at all of those things. So there's certain areas, certain lead generating activities that I may be better at, and he might be using some that he's not very good at. So even though he's getting a lead, technically he's not converting that lead because he's kind of awkward. Maybe he's awkward on the phone, but he's great face to face or something. So that can be another thing that we would take a look at with John. The other thing is that John just does not have a good enough consultation process. Really, you should be sitting down. Now, the reason we know this, first of all, is he's converting poorly, but more importantly, he's got far too low a frequency of spend with his clients, which means that when he does his consultation process, he's not stacking up the value to a client, taking regular personal training. He's not presenting them with a solution to a problem. He's not making a recommendation against a training plan for at least a month. He's letting them get away with, oh, well, I'll just see you for a program once a month type stuff, which doesn't work. It's not actually what most clients are after. So that's the likely causes for John. So if we jump over to Jenny, she's charging too little as well. She's on $45 a session. She's converting poorly at 15%. Not as bad as our friend John, but still not great. She's got too low a frequency of spend. So she's looking at twice a month, which is still too little. That's once a fortnight. That's still not going to get the client results, and it's not going to build up loyalty to your personal training. And her total turnover as a result is $38,812, which is too low. And the likely causes there, well, poorly targeted marketing, which doesn't pre-qualify and pre-interest the lead well enough. Now, how do we know that? Well, we know that because when we jump back up to the income analysis, you can see that Jenny has the most leads of anyone. To get her 37 clients, she's got 15% conversion, but she's dealing with a huge number of people. The problem with that is it's very time intensive, and that's going to cost her a lot of time and a lot of money to market to that number of people, and she's not interesting them enough in terms of her product. So the other thing that's happening with Jenny as well, she's got a poor consultation process, again relates to her conversion rate and to her frequency of spend. Okay, so Jenny and John not doing so well. James, hey, he's actually doing pretty well. His turnover is 101,000. The issue he's got maybe is that he's just charging a wee bit too little. For a guy who's actually got a full client roster, which he has at 40 clients, he really needs to be charging a wee bit more. And we suspect the causes for that would be he's fearful of price changes against his client loyalty. So for instance, a lot of personal trainers will start their business, they'll charge a little bit less at the start, and as they build up their skill set and start delivering great value and getting experience, and they actually don't shift their price for their old clients, and sometimes they don't even shift the price for new clients, which means that once they get their full client roster, unfortunately the average spend is too low, or the price that they're charging is still too low. So that's a fear that can sort of manifest in this number in your business. The other thing for James is his consultation process probably just needs a wee bit of a tweak. The main reason there that we say that is John's only seeing his clients once a week on average, and we would encourage people to work towards a 1.5 times a week average, which we think A, will get great results for the client, B, it means you're dealing with less clients and delivering them more value. And funnily enough, that's where Jill's at. She doesn't really have any challenges. She's earning $96,600 a year in 46 weeks worth of work. She's obviously got good marketing with great cut through, and we can say that because she only has 80 leads that she deals with. She converts 25% of them into clients. That gives her 20 clients, and they're seeing her 1.5 times a week, and she's charging $70, which gives her $96,600. So Jill is getting it done. Yeah, she's got a strong conversion rate because she's got obviously a clear understanding of who she wants to be training and why, and she's got a high frequency of spend and average spend. So her prices and the frequency of those training sessions is nice and high with that client base. So what are the top tips in this income generating section? First of all, targeted leads with effective lead generating strategies are a must. You want less leads of a high quality. You want to know who you want to be working with and why, how often, what results they're going to be after. The next thing is conversion rate. You must be 20% over. You know, when you consult with someone and when you're actually working with someone on the shop floor to bring them to a point where they're sitting down and having a consult with you, the purpose of that process is to sell. I'm amazed how many personal trainers I'll sit down and ask them what is the number one goal of consultation, and they will say to me things like, understanding my client, letting my client know about the things I can do, making friends for the future, providing some additional help, understanding the needs of my client. Yep, absolutely fine. All those things need to happen, but the sole objective you're going to have in there is to either sell or decide not to sell to this client. You must have that in your mind. So, and selling and personal training is super easy because you are solving a client's problems, you're providing them with a recommendation, and you're improving their life in a huge number of ways by personal training them well. So within PT Direct website, we spend quite some time in stepping through how this is exactly done, so that you don't have to be a car salesman to be extremely successful at personal training and to provide these solutions to clients, which they obviously wouldn't be sitting down with you unless they wanted anyway. So moving off conversion rate now into the top tips around frequency of spend. As I've said earlier, 1.5 times a week or more. That means you do more training with less clients to ensure that they get results and you've got a nice loyal client base. And then lastly, tip number 4 here, pricing that distinguishes and attracts high yield clients but is market respectful. What that means is don't be cheaper than everyone else, be a little bit more expensive if you can. So if the price on average is $60, then be $65. And you want to attract high yield clients. Now look, cheap is untrustworthy to a high yield client. What that means is if your price is really low, the implicit message is you're not sure about what you do, you're not good enough at what you do, and a high yield client who wants to be really well looked after is simply not going to be attracted by price alone. So moving on now to expense analysis. Thanks for bearing with me here. What we're looking at is John, Jenny, James and Jill looking at their rental, phone, travel, client costs and the total cost. What you'll note here is that their rent is the same, their phone costs are the same, the travel costs are the same. The only thing that's changed a little bit is client costs. If you look at John, he's spending on his 16 clients $100 a client. Jenny's spending $100 a client on her 37.5 clients. James is spending $100 a client on his 40 clients, and Jill is spending $150 a client on her 20 clients. You'll note that Jill's costs overall are actually lower than James and Jenny's and not much higher than John's. So Jill has been able to spend more on her clients, but her total costs are lower overall. So let's have a look at where that works out. Okay, all are virtually the same expense lines. We've worked with a lot of personal trainers. If we're in a club with 12 personal trainers in it, if I take their cash flow statements and look at their expense line, there will be at most a 10% variation across those. So personal training is not distinguished. The most successful personal trainers aren't distinguished by their expense lines. They're actually distinguished by their client bases and their incomes. So what we're seeing here is that all spend the same amount. All of John, Jenny and James spend the same amount basically, and they spend the same amount on clients. Jill on the other hand has the same expenses, except she spends 50% more on fewer clients. So she's spending $150 a client, as I've said. Her total expenses are low. Now look, the reason this is important is because the actual asset that you have in personal training is your client base. So what happens there is the leg press machine doesn't have a wallet, therefore it won't pay you for your services. The client has the wallet. If you want to develop your client base, your asset, you must spend money on it. So any expenses, any extra expenses you incur should really be around impressing your clients, looking after them, providing them with super care, and personal training them better and better. Alright, so what are the top tips in the expense side? Most expenses are fixed and will be very similar for all personal trainers, and the ones that are variable will be about the same usually as well. Spend any extra money you have on your sole asset, that's your client base. Tip 3 is probably the most important. Make that spending personal, timely, meaningful, and unrestricted. What that means is make it about the person. Give it to them at a time that they've earned it, or it's a reward, or it's a surprise, or it's special. Make it meaningful. So make it not everybody gets a branded t-shirt with I train with Steve on it, but this person gets an amazing wine rack for their house because they love their red wine in the evenings, and you've been to their house and visited with them and you thought, wow, they'll love this will look great there, the style of their house. Now, unrestricted means if that was a $200 spend, I would buy it in a heartbeat. Why? Because hey, personal training is about making people feel special, as much as it is about getting them fit and healthy. So that spending into your asset base, which is your clients, is really important, and it's very much a case of making it meaningful. Alright, so that's income analysis done and expense analysis done. We're going to jump now into yields. Now they're obviously a product of the expenses and the income. So first thing is your margins. So if, for instance, I turned over $100,000 and my expenses were $50,000, my profits would be $50,000. So this means that I've made $50,000 on a 100 grand turnover, so I've got a margin of 50%. And this is what this line at the top here is. Gross profits is simply that, how much money in my pocket have I got before tax. You can see that both James and Jill are actually doing reasonably well and quite close in terms of their returns. Profit per client is how much money, if I divided the total profits I had by the number of clients I currently have, what would the dollar value per client be? How much profit do I gain each year per client? And then looking at contact hours. Per contact hour, how much money am I actually making on average? Okay, so let's break this down. Let's have a look at John. First of all, he's got negative margins because he's losing money. He's losing $7,780 a year. He's going broke, and he's got a negative yield on a per client basis and per hour. Now, yields are an outcome of John's problems in attracting and selling enough value to clients against his expenses. So in other words, John needs to get busy getting better. And if he doesn't, he's going to be out of the club pretty soon. So next thing is Jenny. Now Jenny has modest margins for a personal trainer, so she's got about 57%. We'd usually look for a much higher margin than that, because obviously as a self-employed person within a personal training situation in a club, you're looking to have quite a high margin on your costs. The gross profits that she's producing won't really pay for the average person's living expenses. I mean, $22,000 before tax won't go very far in today's world. And she's got a very modest profit per client and per hour, so $591 a year per client and $25 an hour. So it's a bit low. So again, as I said, yield is really an outcome of the income and expense side of things. Basically, Jenny doesn't currently sell enough to each client at a high enough price. So she really needs to look at her pricing in a consultation process as well. Okay, so then we move on to James. Now James actually not doing too bad. He's got a lower per hour yield than is desirable, so he's earning $45, about $45, $46 an hour, and the reason for that is his pricing and the frequency that he has. So he's only charging $55 an hour, and he's only training each client once a week. So again, if he fixed that up, if he took that up to 65, then he'd see a significant swing here. He'd get up to $55 yield, and obviously if he stepped this up, he'd have less clients to deal with. And that's really where Jill's at. So Jill's got 50% higher yield per client than the next closest personal trainer. So Jill's yield is $4,000 a client, whereas James's yield was $2,000 a client. Jill earns about 29%, so 30% more than what James does. So Jill's earning $58 an hour, and James is earning, in terms of profit per hour, $45. That's a big difference. It's a really big difference. So it's very important here to see with yields how price is actually working and creating extra profits for Jill. And as a result, Jill doesn't have to work as much. So Jill sells a high value service to a limited number of clients. You can tell that because she's only got 20 clients, and essentially those 20 clients are spending about $87.50 with her 46 weeks of the year. Now we always work on 46 weeks in the year. We allow 3 weeks off through Christmas and New Year's, and 3 weeks off through the year, and that just allows for the ebb and flow of clients through a personal training business and a club. So this 87.50 is very achievable. Most personal trainers who are doing it have been well trained and well supported and understand the process will be able to achieve this quite comfortably. Alright, so the top tips. Well, look, margin and yield are a result of your pricing and volume. Because you have a fixed amount of time each week for clients, that's your volume, you've got to get your pricing right. Otherwise your yields won't be rewarding enough. In other words, you'll be working really hard and you won't be making a lot of dough. Per client yield is a result of how much you sell and deliver to how many clients. So in other words, you've got to focus on a lower number of high frequency clients who are well suited to what you do, and you've got to deliver something that's noteworthy and build your reputation. Why? Because then you get referral business and you won't have to go out hunting for clients at all. So it's focusing on what you're going to be really good at, finding those clients, looking after them extremely well, and building a client base that's nice and stable like that with a good price as well. Okay, so just jumping on to the last thing we're going to look at here is time analysis. So we're actually going to look at each year how many contact sessions have these guys got. You can see John's not got many across a year because obviously he hasn't got many clients. Jenny's got quite a few, James has got a heap, and Jill's between Jenny and James. Okay, so if you break this down on a 46-week year, you can see the numbers here. Now what we'd say about these numbers is 40 is probably a wee bit high, and 30 is nice and comfortable, because these are just contact hours, so you can expect maybe another 8 to 10 hours a week of non-contact activities such as administration and phone calls, emails and so on, program writing time, and the same over here, probably another 5 to 8 hours for Jill there. So let's have a look blow by blow. Simply too few paid contact hours, 4 a week for John. John doesn't find and convert enough leads. We've talked about that. Now, look, this is where the rubber meets the road, really. We've consulted with a lot of trainers who, at some stage, have found themselves in this position. Really, it's whether they're ready, willing, and able to change, because John either doesn't know how to do it, so he needs to go through some learning, or John isn't willing to do it, so he's scared and his fear's holding him back, or there's something, he doesn't want to be successful, heaven forbid, but there's something there that's stopping him from doing it. He's uncomfortable, and that again, he has anxiety around the tasks that are required of a personal trainer, so that's what's holding him back. Now, if he's not prepared to learn, if he's not prepared to take action, then John won't be in business next year. Simple as that. Jenny, hey, look, she's got a modest number of contact hours at 19 per week. She's going to have lots of time for drinking coffee and chatting to friends on her phone, which is probably not what she wants to do with the business. So really, Jenny has enough clients, but they don't see her frequently enough. I mean, she's got 37 clients, but she's just seeing them every fortnight. So she really needs to get targeted leads and work on a consultation process that she can increase that frequency. James may burn out. He's working 40 contact hours a week, as I've said before. If you lump another 8 to 10 hours there, that's 50 hours a week, 46 weeks a year. If James has got responsibilities at home and stuff in terms of dependence and that, he won't mind working 40 hours a week because that'll be putting food on the table. But if he's looking to do that for 10 years, he may get a bit wearisome of it. So the consultation process he uses somehow ends up in a lower price at $55 and a lower frequency of training than it should, because he's only training people once a week. So I think James can probably improve there a little bit. Okay, Jill. Well, look, Jill's got essentially what we would say is a pretty bang-on business for a club-based personal trainer at this stage. You can stretch it a little bit further than this, but in let's say in the second year of business for Jill, this would be about where she'd want to sit. 30 contact hours, 5 to 8 hours of non-contact work we'd tuck in there as well. 6 weeks off a year, that's not a bad deal for 96,000 gross profit. turnover. So likely causes, well, she obviously understands what a client asset is and who they are, and she knows how to manage them. And she's created this unique situation where she's got some wealth. She's doing something she enjoys, and she's well, and she's got choices with time because she's got 6 weeks in which to spend some of that money. So let's have a look at the top tips. Look, a highly sustainable contact schedule is between 30 and 35 hours for a personal trainer, 46 weeks of the year. Because you're swapping time for money, although you're selling results, you've got to get your price right, otherwise you simply have to work too many hours to earn a reasonable living. So focus on getting your price right, getting your consultation perfected so that you get a nice high frequency, getting your marketing directly to clients that you really want to work with, those high yield clients, and away you go. Okay, well look, thanks for listening, and I hope you've gotten some good insight out of these analyses that we've just put in front of you. If you've got any questions, feel free to email through to us at PT Direct, and have a great day.